on this computer. All right, we are recording. And today is 24th of April, and we are going to start brand new topic, which is Kubernetes. And with that, we are also going to see what's the problem, what exactly is Kubernetes is, and what are the components. And if time permits, we'll just see a demo, and we'll just get into the bigger picture. Okay. All right. So the problem statement. So the problem statement is right in front of you. Right. So say if you can run Docker run -p 8080 Nginx, right? So that means what exactly you are doing. We are running a Nginx container, and we are exposing with port 80, correct? And if I wanted to run the any different image with the same port, it's not going to work. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, it is not going to work, because it is going to tell you that, hey, that port is already allocated to someone else. Obviously you cannot run it, right? That is our first problem. The second problem, um, that you are having multiple applications, right? And in those applications, you have to know or aware that if this port is being taken, then I cannot be assigned to another. Okay. And that is where the problem comes into picture, and why exactly, you know we need something different, from Docker. Obviously Docker do not prepared or created for this uh, things. It has to create, it has to build the image, it has to push the image, it has to inspect the image. Basically it is creating or maintaining. It's not like maintain multiple or maintain many, say maintain many containers at one shot, right? So you cannot so maintain many containers from the Docker, right? So that is where the compose comes into picture, correct? That where we have given multiple stacks as a service, then we run, right? So but still there is a problem. But because the moment whenever you want to scale, that will be a problem, correct? So let's see. So let's get started with the problem statements. Then after that, slowly we will all the things whatever we are going to do, we will come back the problems. Okay. So the first problem, it can only start, stop, restart, right? So start, you have to log in and you have to start it, right? Although you have an option like, dash dash restart equal to always open failure or something like that. But think like how you can scale, right? How you maintain the resiliency, right? So Docker is, just starting, stopping, and restarting. Apart from that, nothing else. Okay. Now, when you have multiple applications, then there is a problem. uh, lot of things you have to maintain. You have to maintain, there are different YMLs, Docker Compose YMLs. So at the end of the day, it will be bigger. Suppose say you are having 5 applications, so you'll be having maintaining 5 different repos, 5 compose. So no, it is going to be complicated, right? Now, uh, the containers using similar ports. This is very crucial, that you cannot scale, right? You cannot if the containers are using the similar ports, definitely the other the containers, which is say Nginx, cannot come on that server, because it is not going to work in that manner, because it is going to tell that, hey, the service or the port has been allocated, right? Now the service discovery is like, the um, a service is running. How a service is, or a application service will come to know where exactly the database service is running. Obviously you can, by doing a compose file, you can add it with the name and all, but think about only Docker, right? So it do not have that. Again, Docker compose has that, but if the underlying host is down completely, your service discovery gone, everything is completely out of sync. Auto repair or resilience or availability, that means a container is going gone down, how fast it is can come up, or that is auto repair or resiliency. Or availability, that means say four, I want to run four different, or four uh, same nginx or same applications, four containers I wanted to run. How do I do that? Obviously you cannot do that, because uh, I can run or expose only port 80, it is can run, but I want to um, my requirement is make it available, that means make it more resilient, more available in the space. Like if one goes down, the other three containers can serve my request. So those that thing is completely not down, not there. So scale up, scale down, based according to my resource utilization, the containers should go down, containers should come up, right? So that is not going to happen on that Docker. Resource restrictions, say I cannot give, if the base machine is having 4 gig, I cannot give that nginx to 4 gig completely. I have to restrict that. I have to give less CPU, less memory accordingly, so that other containers can come up. So that is why resource restriction. Access restriction, that means to this host, anyone, no one should have complete admin level access. One person should have read level access, one person should have admin level, one person should have write, one person should do not have any access, right? So those access restrictions, how do you maintain? Docker cannot provide that. Storage, I'm currently, Docker, I'm currently on the base machine or a one host machine, and that storage it be, used like NFS, your local mount, your iSCSI, your Google Cloud, your AWS, your, droplets, whatever. All these things, storage has to be supported. But Docker supports, okay? Docker supports that, but the problem when it comes, when it becomes expands, that means when it becomes two three cluster wise, so Docker does not provide that. So secrets, how do you manage your username and password, right? So obviously that is also not comes with the Docker right now. With BuildKit, having BuildKit and all, obviously you can create the secrets. But if you look at the only Docker engine, that's not at all there, right? So custom configurations, say like I want any kind of changes. So obviously right now with the daemon, you can do that. But it's not only, about the starting, stopping, restarting. It is all about the creating the cluster, making it your complete previous multiple applications, container using similar ports, service discovery, repair, availability, resilience, scale up, scale down, resource. Those are basically custom configuration. How I can, easily modify my configuration on the fly, that's not there. And adding multiple nodes, obviously multiple nodes means you have to have a cluster, and those nodes have to be mapped with Docker. mhm, Nothing. You have to get onto a something called multi-host networking, which provides you overlay, by with on top of overlay, you can create multiple nodes. But coming to Docker, nope, that is where it fails. Ingress is like you wanted to make some traffic to inside of your uh, to the pod, right? So think like you are completely bound or completely, running multiple applications, and you cannot create their their expose, or you cannot expose there, or you cannot create their multiple DNS records for there to scale. So that is where uh, your ingress comes into picture, and these are the problems of Docker. Why exactly we are need of orchestrations? Any questions? Whatever I have covered till now. Any questions? Any questions? No questions? All good?
Here multiple nodes in Docker Swarm. We used to add multiple
Again,
nodes, right?
again. This is Docker. This is not orchestration. We have not done with the Swarm. This is completely on the Docker side. These are the problems. What exactly we faced on the Docker. Remember that.
Yeah. In this case, no, all these form exist in Docker.
Correct. This is that's my point. My point is the problems. So that is why the what are all the problems we are facing with the our Docker ecosystem? Why a different uh, orchestration comes into picture, right?
But Docker provides the overlay networking.
again
And
again again Docker provides overlay networking. That is a separate part. By using overlay networking, you can get into orchestration, right? So we have not yet done gone to the orchestration. This is completely the problem statements are for only Docker ecosystem. So
so I didn't get the problem related to multiple nodes.
uh-huh. Okay, so multiple nodes without overlay. Think completely forget. Have I mentioned networking? No, right? So, so without having overlay, can you add two nodes and create the DNS, create complete configurations, whatever it has been there? Can you do that?
No, no, no.
No, right? So that is a problem, right? So that is what exactly I wanted to mention. I mean, I have mentioned. Getting it?
Yeah, yeah. So
All right, all right.
So here thing is to overcome all these problems in Docker, we have to add one after another. To overcome multiple
Ah,
pods in one configuration, we have to go for instead of Docker, you have to go for Docker Compose. To add
mhm.
multiple node, instead of Docker, you have to go Docker Swarm.
Yes,
Likewise,
yes,
okay.
yes, yes. Again, so those things we will see. We'll see. Okay, okay. I have everything sorted. I know the flow. So just watch it. Okay. Now, there are not only this, there are bigger problem than this. Okay. The problems are multiple application stacks. Like, you are currently completely having a web server, having application server, backend DB, backend Mongo. No, so it can be right. It can be right. So we have also seen by doing compose. So the more it grows, the more problematics. Correct. Large deployments, say one you are deploying one of the Tomcat, which is the war file itself is 2 gig or 3 gig, who knows, and your database size is 16 gig. So and you wanted to make it big as well. So how far you can go, the more bigger you are going with the deployments, the more problems you are creating for yourself, right? So that is also a problem. And how do you make sure, how do you deploy it? If you are deploying, I'm talking about only the Docker, okay? You are calling, you are making your application container to go down, because Docker do not have any kind of rolling updates or any kind of scheduling or any kind of on the fly, which it will give you zero downtime, right? Agree? Everyone agree with
Yeah.
me?
Yes.
Right. Now coming to the replication and availability, if Docker itself is not able to provide you your deployments, your rolling updates, then of how you can make it sure it is available or it is replicated properly, right? So that is bigger problem. Resilience, once container goes down, that's it. There is no one is there to check what's happening with that container. Literally it is down unless someone human can log in and can check, hey, why it is down, and troubleshoot and make it up, right? That is what exactly resilience is means. The moment auto repair. So basically, so if that is down, automatically it should come back up. Okay. Now storage, I think already I have given. So I do not have to tell that. And ingress, already I have explained. Now the problem statements are, did you got all those problem statements? Why exactly we need something more powerful, right?
Yeah.
To solve all this, we need an orchestration tool. Okay, it can be anything. It can be anything, right? So, but to solve all these problems, we need an orchestration, right? Availability. First thing, very, very important, that scale as defined in your desired state. That how many, if you have defined, and that thing has to come up. That means if you are defined that 4 containers, always it has to be 4 containers. If it is goes down to 3, the auto repair, the resiliency checks in, make sure it becomes 4 containers. Correct. So that is what exactly the resiliency is does. If a container exists or dies, a new one created, because it is looked directly proportional to the availability, because it has been desired state, 4 containers. One goes down, automatically it will come back up one. All right. Storage, local, NFS, iSCSI, Google Cloud, AWS, complete whatever we have, all the storage it has to be, because it is running on multiple nodes, right? So that is where all the multiple nodes has to be packed by a storage file system. It can be local to a NFS or iSCSI, whatever the best you guys can get. Now, deployments, very important, that rolling updates or availability should not has to be goes down. It has to be zero downtime, right? So deployments with canary pattern, that means you deploy version 1.0, okay, and you also want to test 2.0 as well, right? So you push 1.0, you push 2.0, but you make some configurations where some of the requests, some of the traffic will move to 2.0, and you can check in the production environment, in the real-time environment, what's exactly happening, what is the exact difference between version 1 and version 2. That is where exactly the canary deployments or the A/B testing, there are multiple deployment strategies are there, but Canary is one of the best uh, in the production, in the deployments. That is why I have mentioned, and it is. I think it is. It is right now. It is the standard. Canary is the standard. So we are going to see more and more deployments while we through. Okay, scheduling, that I'm having a application which takes more memory, right? Or I'm having a application which take more CPU. So I'll be having nodes, right? Multiple nodes. So which is memory havoc? I'm going to assign those memory havoc applications to memory where I'm having multiple megabits, or 64 gig, or where it is memory havoc applications would be assigned to a memory uh, node which is having more memory. Or and similarly, a CPU havoc or CPU, taking more CPU, whoever is taking more CPU, that applications I can put it into a where it is taking more resources, like CPU, which is having more CPU allocated on that node, right? So those things, resource limitations, I can limit also. And I can put it to a, make it completely a environment where, or completely schedule those containers where goes to that, which is having more memory, more CPU, something like that, right? So that is what exactly the scheduling. Updates, rolling updates, yes, of course, who do not need rolling updates in this, in 21st centuries. So yes, of course, that is what exactly we need. Networking and cluster DNS, very very important. Without networking, you cannot make your cluster. And without cluster DNS, that means in the cluster, right, a container is running, it is having, it is load balanced, it is service discovery is working. Now you wanted to make assign a DNS to it, right? Internally DNS to it, so that they can reach to any application, will reach to another application. So there won't be any problems, there won't be any, finding where, hey, I have to find A service has to find B service, or B service has to find C service. Do not have to care about, because the cluster has a DNS. The cluster is already, it will be knowing where is A is running, where is B is running, where is C is running. So all settled, all service discovery with load balanced has to be work. Cool, done. Now already I have told about service discovery, that A service wants to know where's B service running. So with having cluster DNS, automatically, a application service will come to know that where my DB is running, although it is running somewhere in some other node, right? So that is what exactly it can help us. In Grace, already I have explained that you wanted to bring some out traffic to inside traffic with, having a DNS entry to it, having completely load balanced, right? So this is where exactly our orchestration we need, right? Any questions to this? No questions? I understood. Understood, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So that is where our Kubernetes comes into picture, which is as a orchestration tool, right? So in our previous, Docker system, I have also mentioned that orchestration. So, and there is something called Swarm as well, which we have went through. So which is works when you want to do multiple nodes, right? So that is where the Kubernetes comes into picture. Now it's an open source container manager which manages all those containers. It is created by Google. So basically it is system for auto deploy, scale, manage containerized applications. And all the problems whatever we are seeing, our Kubernetes solve that. Okay, so now we are just getting started. So got our problem statements. What are the problems? Why exactly we need? So basically this is the compose file orchestration, how you do the orchestration. So I have already through. So purposefully I have not showcased, because you guys are already gone through this compose file. But we need an orchestration tools, and this is where the problem statements will be solved by this orchestration. And Kubernetes is the answer to these all these things. Obviously it is not only Kubernetes, there are some other tools which we are also going to see. Okay, so in what's exactly it is Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is a framework for building distributed platforms. Okay, so you can build So distributed platform. So already we have know that, right? So it is completely a distributed environment. All of the applications works in a completely distributed manner. Like one person can, sorry, one service can run in node A, one service can run in node 30. Still, they can interact with each other and run in a distributed manner. So basically, it's a framework for building distributed platforms. Okay, so now when you have got into this orchestration, let's figure it out. What are all the orchestration tools we have, right? So, so basically, in the enterprise world, right now it is Kubernetes. Okay, but these are the things which we have seen in the past, that what are all the orchestration tool we are having, right? Say Amazon has ECS, Azure has container service, Cloud Foundry has Diego, Core Fleet, no OS, it has been migrated to what do you call, Red Hat, so that something which is what do you call, I forgot. Who you guys are working with, right? Some of the Red Hat ka product. What is that product? OpenShift. OpenShift. Yes. So Red Hat
Yes.
actually, Red Hat acquired Core OS, and with their Core OS, they got HCD, all these Core OS ka, part. Then with that, they have come up with this OpenShift. Obviously, Docker Swarm, one of the best. Okay, so one of the best orchestration tool. Google Container Engine from the Google, and Kubernetes. Already we are going through it, and Mesosphere Marathon and Nomad. So these are the orchestration tools which we have on the market. Something has been moved away, something has been getting deprecated, and also something getting to the new steps of actions. But as far I know, I think Kubernetes and Swarm are the mostly used orchestration tools at the moment. I think right now Kubernetes is already taking care or making it to the next level, but Swarm is also a good choice. Okay, so this is basically I have given a Kubernetes versus Docker Swarm. So it is every time whoever anyone is asking, if someone is ask you what is the difference between Docker and Kubernetes, you have to correct him or her, saying that, hey, Kubernetes is used for something different and Docker is used for something different. So you cannot compare apple to orange. You have to compare apple to apple, right? So it is Kubernetes versus not at all Docker. It is always Kubernetes versus Docker Swarm or any of the orchestration tools, right? So these are the things which I think 2018, I think I have created this document, 2017, 18. That time it is the features, whatever it was available, I have created it. But as we are going ahead with the Kubernetes, so I am skipping this part because this is, although you can, go through this. I'm going to share this PPT, no problem. So you can go through this, but there is no use of me telling what all the things are there. So you can go over with this, and if you have any kind of questions and all, you can clear me. Okay. All right. So Swarm. So basically, there are these documents which will guide you that why not Swarm and all. Arey yaar. VX. Okay. So there are multiple, talkers. Sorry, there are multiple, sites available. You can go over with this, and you can check this out as well. So there is no point of me explaining is this. So yeah, Swarm basically is not dead, still it is there. So if you are running a small application, so go ahead with the Swarm, because to with the Kubernetes there are many other components involved than Swarm. So that is why Swarm is just easy, just go like this. And but whereas the Kubernetes, it's completely different. Okay. All right. Fine. So let's deep dive. Let's take a break over here. Okay, in 10 minutes break. After that, once I will come back, we will see the Kubernetes architecture and what all the things are there, what you are going to see, and we will proceed further. And I'm here for clearing all of your doubts. So till now, if you have any kinds of doubts and all, you can ask me. Or if the sessions is not going according to your standard, you can also tell me that. If a session is going good, you can also tell me that as well. All right.
Okay.
So let's reconvene in 10 minutes. What is the time now? Okay, so it is 11:45. Okay, let's reconvene at wait a minute. Let's reconvene at 12. Let's take a
Okay.
15 minutes break. All right.
Okay.
Okay. We
Uh,
stop at three.
we'll stop the recording as well.
Pause. Pause.
We'll pause. Can we resume the recording? All right. Recording has been resumed. Okay. So now, like how we have got down completely to a Swarm architecture. Similarly, there is something like Kubernetes architecture as well. We also have to know how Kubernetes is making it sure high availability, resiliency, service discovery, DNS, all these sort of bells and whistles, how they do. So what you're going to do, so in this Kubernetes architecture, first we have to see what is the bigger picture or the basic architecture, how it is being defined in our current systems, or the basically the enterprise world, how they use it. Okay. And then we will deep dive into the Kubernetes architecture, like what are all the master nodes, what are the worker nodes, what is pods and services and deployments. Okay, so there are many subcomponents, right? um and deployments would be having multiple types of deployment services, different types of services, pods, different types of pods. And also with that, there are different types of subcomponents as well, and we are also going to see that. Okay, first we have to understand what is the basic architecture looks like. Then we will slowly we'll deep dive. Okay, here we go. So as a bunch of this is how exactly your Kubernetes components looks like. Okay, so you're having a master node, right? So master node is having some controllers, master controller, control manager, scheduler, API server, HCD cluster, which is storing the data. And so basically there's your master node connects to your nodes, and the nodes is having something called proxy, kubelet, and kubelet is connecting to the Docker, and Docker basically creates the pods. Okay, so going forward in Kubernetes, we are going to call containers. There won't be any containers now, it would be like pods. Okay, we are also going to see what's exactly it is, and also basically it's just a 20,000 overview how exactly your cluster looks like, and how a user connects and get the details. Okay, so we will deep dive into all these parts. Someone may ask, hey, why you are still using Docker, because Docker has been deprecated from 1.21, but 1.21 is not yet stable, right? So it is going to take some time, but till the time, Docker is going to be there as a container runtime. And what's exactly that container runtime interface, we are also going to see but in later chapters. But at the moment, these are the components or the basic architecture, how your Kubernetes looks like. Pretty confusing, jam packed, but we are going to see one by one, bit by bit, so that it would be completely cleared. Okay. But you can, the lines, the ways how exactly I will drill down to a very normalized level also. But this is how the cluster looks like. Okay. So now, as a basic, this is how a Kubernetes master components and a worker components is having. Okay. So master components is having Kube API server, HCD, scheduler, manager, and Kube control manager, cloud control manager. So basically, these are the components only master nodes is having. Okay. Now come to the worker nodes or the slave nodes, or the say other nodes, say nodes where exactly the pods or the containers works, right? So that is having kubelet, your proxy, and a pod. Inside of the pod a container runs. Okay. And who powers that? Now Docker powers that. Cool. Any questions with this question, this step, this architecture, and this architecture? I mean, this diagram and this diagram. So basically, this diagram is like, giving you a complete what's happening. And this diagram is giving you what's happening with master and worker node. Any questions? All
Yeah,
the, yeah,
just in the networking side, suppose we have a different networking, CIDR blocks, right? In terms of cloud or in on
premises.
database cluster as well. Means uh, those servers supports one server in running in different network, and another
Mhm.
node is running in different network.
Uh-huh.
Even that, in that case also we can have a communication,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes.
or we should have
Yes.
everything in one network
Yes,
only.
yes. Everything we can have.
Multiple network nodes also can communicate to
Yes,
master.
yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
So that means
That is a very complicated chapter, and also complicated things. That is, I would say, take it as a advance, where you have to know what is service mesh, how HCO works, what is federation. So that is basically a completely different chapter altogether, which we are not going to cover here.
Okay.
but we'll cover later, right?
No, no, no. So that is completely different. That needs a your working cluster having Istio, separate. That needs a lot of money also, because you have to create a separate cluster, one cluster in another cluster. You have to create a one
Okay,
local
okay.
load
Real time
balancer.
practice.
Then you have to create a service mesh. Then you have to add a elastic load balancer to it. It is complicated. It is
So whatever now you're telling, it is inside one network, right?
Yeah. So whatever we are telling, it is completely one single network.
Okay.
Then we are not going to that. It is possible to let us know the how the istio work. I know what
Uh-huh.
the.
Yeah, yeah. It's your service mesh. Yeah, I'll cover. No issues. I'll cover. I'll cover.
Even
Okay.
the picture looks scary and confusing. I'm not able to understand how it connects each other.
Yeah, so exactly. So believe me, no, whenever I also got it. I also completely did not quite got it. So I also took some time. So I will make sure you will get it, completely very meaningful manner. Okay. So just be with me at the end of the session. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is how exactly your Kubernetes master and a worker node is been divided.
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
So the master node is predefined, or is we can define it by ourselves,
Define
like
what
we
you
do.
What do you mean by define? What do you mean by that?
Like we did in Docker Swarm.
Uh-huh.
So there
Oh,
was
okay.
an
That one,
election type thing. Yeah.
obviously. See,
Same theory, right?
same theory, same
Yeah.
theory. Okay.
Okay.
So the thing is that it looks scary, but if you compare with the Swarm, so let me bring up the Swarm thing, then it would be a bit easier as well. Let me see containers. Yeah. So if I go to the Swarm part, where exactly? If you look at the Swarm is also having the same thing, right? Manager and worker nodes. Correct? So manager is having API, orchestrator, allocator, scheduler, dispatcher, and it is backed by Raft. Correct? Similarly, worker node is having worker and executor. Correct in Swarm. So now in Kubernetes, it is having master node is having API server, HCD, scheduler, manager, kube control manager, and worker node is having kubelet, kube proxy pod. What's confusing? Easy, right? Swarm is also having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components. Kubernetes having also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, same 5 components. API, accept the connection, orchestration, the reconciliation, allocates the IP allocator, scheduler, assign a node to the task, dispatcher checks into the work. Similarly, these are the Kube API server does something, HCD, similar to the Raft, Kube scheduler schedules, control manager manages. Simple. Getting it or not getting it? Getting it?
The work is similar, but only the naming convention.
Yes, you got it completely right. The work is completely different. If you look at here, it is also doing the same thing. Similarly, kubectl is going to connect with the Kube API server. I'm going to explain, but it is the same Swarm, whatever it is doing. Kubernetes is also doing the same thing, but I have no clue why they made it as, out of blue, out of proportion, saying that, oh my God, Kubernetes is too complex. No, man, it is not complex. Your understanding is complex. You are making it complex. But if you look at the same Swarm is also complex, but it is not, it gives you just Docker Swarm in it. It is just, happening. But in Kubernetes, it is doing on its own. It is a separate part. But in Swarm, it is completely one command. It's everything ready. So that is why people have not literally know what's happening under the hood. But Swarm is also doing the same thing. What's exactly Kubernetes is also doing. The way how you look at the things, that is where it matters. Got it? Shall I proceed further?
Yes.
All right. So, but anyways, no, not to worry. I will explain how exactly I have explained the Swarm. I am going to explain in the same pattern. So do not worry. Okay. All right.
Just one question for all the yes, for Kubernetes master, it is the engine who will control all the nodes.
What engine?
Means from Kubernetes master will control all the nodes, right?
Yes. Kubernetes master will control. So similar with Swarm, how you manages from the Swarm master node. Similarly in Kubernetes also master node, you manage everything.
Okay, and in the nodes we have a Docker container, right?
Yeah, so similar to Swarm. So in worker nodes also having Docker containers, right? Similarly, Kubernetes also having Docker containers.
No
but
naming convention. That is
yes,
okay,
it is called
No
as
naming
pod.
convention.
It is called as pod.
Pod, yes.
Why pods? We are also going to see that. Why pods? Okay. Cool. All right. Okay. So this is basic a Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So you are the dev or you are the admin of the Kubernetes cluster. networks it is being managed. You connect to the network, you connect to the master node, and from the master node you get the output, and you can connect to the knocker node 1 to node whatever it you are running. And the worker node, it will be running Docker, kubelet, kubeproxy. And master node, etcd, API server, control manager, scheduler. Cool. This is how the Kubernetes cluster looks like.
Okay, good.
Understood? So you are doing kubectl, right?
Yeah, kubectl.
kubectl, you are, first you are connecting to a cluster, correct? Cubes, the moment whenever you are doing kubectl get pods, it is connecting to a cluster, getting authenticated, checking what's happening on the worker nodes and worker node 2 or whatever it is, getting the response and giving you the shows the response, correct? So basically this is what exactly it's happening. Okay, now let's deep dive into a completely a service wise. Okay, so I think this one I have already explained in the orchestration part, but again let me explain it to you one more time. So I'm having two HTTPS service, one search, one authorization, one key value store like Redis, one MySQL service, one load balancer, one log service. Okay, so that means I'm having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 services, which were one service is identical, rest of the services are different services, right? Now in node 1 I'm running 3, in node 2 I'm running 2, and in node 3 I'm running all the three services. But how they manage the request goes here, load balancer. From the load balancer through HTTPS, it is going to authorize himself. Then it is going to, again in node 2, either it can go over here. From the load balancer, it can come to the HTTPS, it can do a search, then it can, get that DB, then it can put the log, then it can, put a key value store. So representation can be wrong, but the idea over here is that I am running different types of services in different machines, but still I'm able to manage them. I'm able to get the record. I'm able to discover them. I'm able to load balance them. That is where it means orchestration. Orchestration is like managing multiple containers in a proper confined zone or a distributed platform. Clear?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the master components, and this is basically a what's happening in the in node 1 or node provision wise. This is a master wise, and this is a node wise. And basically this is how a cluster looks like whenever you wanted to, from your local machine, or you wanted to connect to your cluster, you have to connect to kube control or kubectl. So you can go ahead and you can connect with your Kubernetes cluster. And this is basically a example of how orchestration looks like. Okay, so once we know about this, so let's deep dive what's exactly the master components is having and what all they do. Okay.
Why, if you don't mind, can you go to slide number 16?
16.
So here what is happening from there, the load balancer is in node 1 and the two identical HTTPS service, one is in node 1, one is in node 2. So whenever it gets a request, it goes both either to node 2 or node 1, which gives the authentication in node 1.
Correct.
And once after it gets the authentication, it again goes back to node 2 stating that okay, the service is accepted, and it goes to search. Then it goes to the database and generates log, and it then goes to store the key value.
Correct.
So
Correct.
this all happens in a single network.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
and it is all being managed, discovered, load balanced by Kubernetes. That is what exactly the orchestration is.
So these all managed by, so this load balancer, where it comes to the picture, I'm not getting the load balancer part.
Okay.
So the load balancer is also maintained by Kubernetes, or the
Kubernetes.
cloud comes into the picture here?
No. Kubernetes. So the load balancer, whatever we are talking about, the cloud, that is different. And inside the cluster, load balancing is different. That is being managed by Kubernetes. It is nothing to do with your cloud load balancer. It is always, it is everything. It is, whatever happening, it's inside the network. So that is load balancer I am talking about.
Okay, okay, got it.
All right. Okay. Okay, let's deep dive to the our master nodes. Okay, so like as I have already explained in the Swarm section, so all of these orchestrated or these distributed system be managed by a master node, right? So that master node, as we have seen on the in our Swarm, so there are no, first you go and you initiate, you create the leader, and something similar to that. But here a little bit of different, but the concept remains same, but it is kind of a different. What is that? We are also going to see. Okay, so first one, and basically I have mentioned that Kubernetes cluster consists of bunch of master and nodes, and here is the master is consist of multiple moving parts, and they run on a single server. Okay, so you would have been managed or would have been observed the moment when you do Docker Swarm in it, basically nothing comes up, nothing runs, right? So if you do Docker PS, nothing runs. That is the magic of having Swarm. So basically it's works under the hood. But Kubernetes, that's not the case, right? In Kubernetes, the moment whenever you wanted to make sure that, hey, you are the master, that means you are literally running some containers, different containers on that particular node. And that is where it gets bit complicated. Okay, and what are all those containers comes in? First one is Kube API server. Okay, one is HCD or the key value store. Already I have explained on the Swarm section what is HCD or Raft protocol, the distributed internal database store. Okay, so that is being managed by HCD. And in Kubernetes, literally a HCD container comes up, and similarly a API server also comes up. Okay, and there is something called Kube Control Manager. Okay, and also Kube Scheduler. So that means 5 containers, different containers comes up the moment whenever you are bringing up your master node. Okay, but in Swarm you just have to do Docker Swarm in it, that's it, automatically deal done, automatically that one becomes the master node. But here, the moment if you want to do a master node, basically there are ways, we are also going to see that. But the moment it becomes a master node, API server, key value store, your control manager, Kube Scheduler gets onboarded or gets created, or it runs as a containers. Cool. Till now, you guys are with me?
Yeah, I have one question.
Uh-huh.
In Kubernetes master,
Mhm.
so HCD, it's a key value store database, which
Uh-huh.
is the core parameter in Kubernetes, because it's
Uh-huh.
store all the your configuration and all.
Correct.
So, and if you go to the worker node, the pod running different database. Suppose you are as like you explained earlier, you are running a search and you're storing a DB. That will be that also required a storage. So here in a general case in production, the
Mhm.
HCD supply from a different storage class, or the other application database that are supply from different storage class.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Is it
I got it. I
make that
got it.
Yeah.
So HCD in the production, we run it completely separately. Okay. So it is a specific HCD cluster. So that means 3 HCD instances will be deployed completely different, exposed to the Kubernetes API server. That's it. It do not have to, storage class, do not have to, all these, whatever we do it in the Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Again, we are not using. Okay. Application is completely different. HCD is completely different. It is completely DB. So how you
Yeah,
manage
that's
your
right.
DB, that is where we manage in the production.
Okay.
Okay.
We can take, whether we can install the HCD in our on-premise server,
Yes,
or we
yes,
can
yes.
take the cloud as well, right?
No, yeah, yeah. We are going to take now on premises as well as cloud. So, but nowadays, you guys can, decide. Most of the things are moving very, very fast. People are moving into managed services. We are going to see both the ways. One is, on premises. One is cloud version. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
cool. All right. So till now, you guys are with me. That Kubernetes master components, that API server, KV store. What exactly do? We'll see it later. Okay. But these are the master components, right? So now let's deep dive into Kube API server. All right. Now, Kube API server. The name suggests there is an API, right? That means it exposes the API, the cluster, the master node, the Kubernetes, how exactly it will accept and get and post the information. This is the way.
In the sense, the entry point to Kubernetes cluster.
Yes, the entry point to the Kubernetes cluster. As the name suggests, API, that means it is exposing an API. That is where it is the naming as Kube API server. This is with that only you can connect, you can interact, you can change, modify whatever you wanted to do. Everything has to go through Kube API server. Okay. The first point of your cluster or of your master server is API server. Okay. Because this is the front end. As I have already told, it exposes API and it is consumed JSON. So API server, then it connects to all different parts of your master components. Okay. So master components, they having HCD, scheduler, manager. But first one, Kube API server. What is that? Now front end consumes API and everything, whatever it is happening through this part. Okay, done. Now what? Now second one is, we have covered Kube API server, we have covered. Second one is HCD. Now that is what? It stores the configuration, it stores the cluster configuration, it stores every possible parts, whatever it is being used on the cluster, it stores everything, everything, everything. And how exactly it happens? Because HCD cannot connect, HCD cannot give. So how it is happen? It happens through API server, because API server is the front end which connects to the outer side and consumes, do all those things. Now request comes through API server, goes to HCD, persist, done. Clear? Till now you guys are with me or
Yes,
no?
sir.
Okay, so if you guys are not getting it, please you can let me know. But I am trying my best, to explain you my own terms, own explanations. But still, if you are not getting it, you can feel free to stop me and tell me. Good, you guys are with me.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now the request, okay, the request, as you can see, it is the admin or the user requested, first API server hit, And now from API server, it is goes to the HCD, because HCD cannot connect without, or no one can connect to the HCD. Only API server has the authentication to HCD cluster to read and write and do whatever you wanted to do. Okay. So now it is persistent storage. Okay. So what do you mean by persistent storage? That means its persists is DB or data across the cluster. So as I have already told that, it is uses raft. So that means it is going to pass from one place to another place. That means you should be having in a clustered manner your HCD, right? That means you'll be having at least 3 nodes of HCD. Catch. Here is the catch. In Swarm, we are making available 3 nodes. Remember? We are creating a leader, then leader election goes to someone else. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct? But here, things different. Here, we are not managing, just one moment. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so what I was telling, persist. So I was talking about the how exactly it is different. Now you are not going to create multiple master node, okay? Because the Cube API server is the one who manages the leader election. Who can tell me? Does
No one comment in the question.
Okay, so my question is that are we the moment whenever how we are doing Kubernetes Swarm, that whenever we have done the Swarm part, that we have created 3 nodes, we added master node, we told them, hey, you are the leader, we created 3 node cluster, then we created the manager, right?
Yeah.
So in the Kubernetes, it has to be high available, right?
Yes.
Correct. So in that case, do you want me, in that case, the API server or the master node, do you want to create 3 master nodes?
No.
Why?
Because it is not containing anything in the Kubernetes. Everything is HCD. So if you create multiple API server, there is no use.
Correct. So that is why we create multiple HCD instance. Okay, and we create a load balancer, and that we provide that Kube API server. Okay, now you speak to the HCD load balancer, so that it will distribute among itself that who is the leader, right? So HCD is the raft, uses the consensus, everything. That is basically the whole picture. So here, when it is Kubernetes, that is why you do not create multiple master nodes. Yes, you can have multiple master nodes, but it has to be backed by multiple HCD nodes so that you will get persistence data and highly available data store. Got it? Or it is got complicated, bit complex.
So the load balancer will be on the top of API that Cube API server, right?
No, 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 no.
On top of HCD server.
On top of HCD. HCD will be having, see, there are three things, right? So HCD will be having, okay. So let's not get into that. Let's first get into our Kubernetes, plain Kubernetes cluster. Okay. Let's not high available, blah, 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 because that is very, very complex. Let's get into only Kubernetes, what's happening with this. Okay. Components. HCD, persistent storage. Okay. It is storing cluster state and config. That means how many nodes are there, how many master node, how many worker nodes, what is the node count, what is the service count, what is the deployment counts, every possible things on the cluster, it will be stored on the HCD, right? And how it is gets, again, API server, because API server connects with the client, connects with the cluster, data on the HCD. Good.
In the layman language, if you explain API server, it it will be the index of your book.
Okay.
Because if you want to go inside your book, you will first look on the index in your front page.
Content.
Then directly you can go move to that page. So API server contains the address or location of everything, all the controller inside Kubernetes.
No, 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 no. API server is just an API server. It does not do anything. It persists all this data to the HCD. So it has to go to the HCD.
Okay.
Okay. So API server, as it is name suggests, it's just an API server. It just runs API. That's it. Nothing else.
Can we say that all the requests will come by the API server? It will filter in the API server.
Yes, yes, yes. Everything.
So it's the interface between the request and Kubernetes master. Okay.
Correct. Okay. So now HCD also covered.
Sir, are you taking any backup of HCD?
HCD, yes, we can take the backup of HCD, so that's not a problem.
So is it a real time means
Yeah. Yes.
activity?
Yeah. It is actually, basically it is a CKA question. So it is so powerful or so important. It is a certified Kubernetes administrator question, and it holds the more number. I think it is 12 points or something. So yes, it is very, very crucial and very important.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So now when you are covered this one, first API server connects all these things. Now stores its data. Now control manager. Now controllers of controllers. That means whatever it controls that. Okay. So node controller, endpoints controller, namespace controller, replication controller, deployment controller, whatever you can think of, the controllers, it is manages that. Node controller, it controls the node. Endpoints, node has an endpoint, right? Because it is with that endpoint, someone will reach. So that is namespace. You will create the namespace. It has to know. That is also control. Deployments, there will be a huge number of deployments. Replication, because you do the deployments, it has be having a replication. So how do you manage that? So that is all the controllers would be managed by this control manager. So that is why it is controllers of controllers. Whatever you are seeing, replication, deployment, namespace, service, it is being managed by this control manager. Again, it is through API server, and whatever is from API server persist in the HCD. Cool. Till now, you guys are with me?
In this picture, what I come to know, even though controller is a control manager or queue scheduler or queue control manager, anyone wanted to connect with HCD, it will go through API server only, not directly to HCD.
HCD
Okay.
do not have any access. No one can access without only API server can access. That is what exactly I'm trying to tell. Only API server. Apart from that, no one else. No one. Even you cannot. You have to go through API server. If your API server is down, that's it. You cannot do any kind of operations. API server has to be up.
Okay.
But your HCD is down, that's it. Your cluster is done. Getting it? So understood
Yes.
their points. API server, HCD, control manager. If control manager is down, you cannot speak to your node. You cannot get your necessary changes. You cannot get your deployment. You cannot done your replication. All these things. So these things are very, very important. And whoever able to explain this, I think he's understood the concept very, very clearly. I'll ask this type of question. Hey, if API server is down, does my Kubernetes cluster will run, or what happens? People will say no, it will down, it will goes down. I said, why? It's just an API server is down, right? Why don't you go and check it out? Why don't you fix it? No question, no answer. So you have to understand these, because it is Kubernetes, it is running in as a container, right? So the configuration where exactly it stores. I'll show you where exactly the API stores configurations are. Kube scheduler, every possible configuration, all these YAMLs just resides. You just have to get it, take a look and check it and do it. Clear till now? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Or I'm only the telling and I'm becoming happy. Oh
No, no,
man,
yes, very
I'm
good.
explaining very well.
No, no,
No,
yes,
no, I am
absolutely.
getting it.
Okay, cool. Okay, all right. Now, so controller manages all the controllers, every possible controllers, whatever you can think of, deployments to service, everything. Control managers. Okay. Now, scheduler. So this one is very, very interesting. So someone may ask, okay, so first let's see what's exactly the scheduler. So basically, watches API server for new pods, assign works to the nodes, affinity, anti-affinity, constraints, resources. Basically, it is resources. Okay, so all these things, it schedules. So as the name suggests, scheduler. So it just schedules. So Kube API server say, you did kubectl something done on the API server, persist into the HCD. Then this scheduler say, hey, API server is asking me schedule something. Okay. Scheduler, what it will do? He is going to call to the cloud controller. I mean, control manager. Hey, API server is asking schedule something. Now, what do I schedule? Now you schedule some deployment. So deployment controller speaks to the worker node, then deployment happens. Okay. So that's a separate part altogether. We are going to see, but at the moment we are still with the master components. Okay. That is scheduler. Assign works to the node. So basically it is self-explanatory. I do not have to explain this. Constraints, you want to make any constraint. Okay, hey, run this, run there, all these resources. 2 GB CPU, putting all these limitations, which we have discussed in our, what do you call, the problem statement, right? So now, once we are done with all these components, so this is what exactly happens. Okay. So kubectl is the client, pass as a JSON, consume to the API server as that. That API server first it stores to the cluster store, which is HCD. Then similarly, it will go to the scheduler and it pass again, it backs. Then it schedule the scheduler. Again, it sends to the controller and scheduler will send what it has to be done on the worker node. How cool is that? Pretty interesting, pretty confusing, pretty complex. Yes, I do understand. Even I also didn't get it in my first, whenever I said, okay, so I was thinking, what is this? I was not at all getting anything, but it took time. The moment when I understood it, I was like, oh, this is, come on. But still, I am thinking I'm explaining in a better format because I have done that hard part. But still, if I am not explaining you in a right manner, you can tell me, because that is an improvement area for me as well. Okay.
One question. The communication between API server and cluster store. Cluster store stores the key value.
Mhm.
So request you told will come as a JSON format and it will go in the API server. What the data it will store? The key value means the request key value.
Yes, everything would be a key value, right? So
Yes, yes.
the HCD, it's a key value data store. So whatever we provide, the cluster data, it would be stored in a key value format.
So it will pick from that JSON, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Say you wanted to get some pods or you wanted to deploy some pods. Okay. So you'll do kubectl apply something, right? Some YML, correct? So what happens? It consumes that API server. API server stores that information on the cluster to store. Then again, it tells that, hey, I have stored. This is exactly it has to do. It goes to the controller. Hey, you have to control now. Okay, what do you have to do now? I have to deploy something. It stores, it comes to the API will say, okay, I have done storing in the database, I have done storing into the controller is telling me now schedule something. Okay, scheduler will say, okay, what do you want me to schedule, where do you want me to schedule, and what type of things you want to schedule. Now controller will be having that information. Hey, you have to deploy this pod. Schedulers, okay, what do you have to deploy? Now I have to deploy 16 GB, so many application or Tomcat. Okay, scheduler just connects, checks that information on the nodes, which is having more CPU, more memory. According to that, it is going to put that node over there. As simple as that. Cool.
Yes.
No, you do not have to. I'm telling it's not like, it is all everything, written on stones. If you are getting only, then only you say yes. Otherwise, I'm here to explain you. Okay, understood? Or not at all getting?
Yes, got it.
Perfect. Okay. Now, once you are done with the nodes, our master nodes, okay, so we are done with the Kube API server. What's HCD do, control manager do, scheduler do. Okay, done. So now we know, okay, how exactly this flow works on the master server. Now we have to know how exactly it is going to the nodes. What's happening on the nodes or the worker nodes? The nodes is having three components. One is kubelet, one is container engine, and one is very, very important, that is kube proxy. All right. So now let's deep dive. The master node is done. So now kubelet. Now worker node, first thing, kubelet. Now register the node with the cluster. The moment whenever you attach, okay, in the Swarm, what you are doing, you are creating one node and we are joining a token and we are adding. Remember?
Yes.
Correct. So similarly, how a cluster will come to know? The manager server, the master server comes back up. Okay. Now you want to add one node to the master. So how do you do that? Same concept. It is going to give you a token. And the moment when you run that token, it is going to add to the master node. So that is the kubelet is doing, and it is registering the node with the cluster. First thing, registered the node with the cluster. Okay. And next one, watches API server. Watches API servers. So kubelet job is to watch to the API server what's happening, right?
So just go to the one, the master component on that picture.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I know what you are thinking, what you are asking. So that is why I have kept it everything ready. Because the same
I got.
question is was also happening with me whenever I am learning. I said, "Oh bloody hell! Wow, how what this guy is talking about? Kubelet is talking to API server." And I said, "Seriously?" Then I understood. Okay, the
I thought
moment.
you that no API server means anyway deployment or scheduling will be happen to no kube controller or any controller should connect to a node, but
No,
it is connected. That's my that's why I ask you to go to the picture.
nope. Everything happens with the API server. Every possible thing, everything out, inside, everything. API server. Now you understood?
Yes, I
Okay.
understood.
Now kubelet, what's exactly to do? It registers, manages API servers, instantiates pods. That means the moment whenever it's found out API server gives any kind of response, it is job is to create that pod. And once the pod is created, it is reports back to the master. That is where, if you have seen, I have make it to and fro information. It is also giving back the information as well. So that API server will persist its information on the HCD. Got it? Clear?
Okay, got yeah.
Okay. So now reports back to the master and it exposes endpoint with 10255. So that means this 10255 has to be opened. Otherwise, your kubelet is not going to register with your master. This is also a one more tricky question that sometimes purposefully they will block 10255 and they will say, okay, add this node to the cluster. And you will be, scratching your head. You will be thinking, oh, bloody hell, I am doing the correct thing. Why it is not happening? But in that node, 10255 would be blocked. So yeah, so that is why I have thought of, explaining 10255. Okay, now container engine. Okay,
That
so
is 1025 or 10255.
255 kubelet.
Okay, okay.
10254, I think, API server, I think. API server, I need to check which port, I forgot. But yeah, kubelet exposes 10255. Okay, so now container engine. Now the container engine or the container runtime interface. So basically, this is as container, it is just, doing the container management, like, pulling images, starting, stopping containers. So basically, this is done by the Docker. Okay, self-explanatory. I do not have to go into deep because I have explained much more onto the Docker side. Okay,
Yeah.
now very, very important and the crucial part and the heart, I would say, kube proxy does all of the networking stuff. Okay, load balancer and as well as all the containers. So basically kube proxy, how exactly, that is a separate topic altogether. I will share some of the documents where exactly you will see how the node, the IP tables get matched, the connections being tracked, all those sort of things. But kube proxy is the one who takes care of the current node, all the IP labels, networking, all different types of things on the kube proxy. Okay, so basically it is done by the networking. Okay, I'll share some of the documents and interesting documents on this part. Very, very deep topic. Now, pods. So this is where exactly the things gets a little bit, bit weird, because there is containers, there are pods, right? But you have to understand a thing that this is a container engine, right? And pods, it's an isolated zone. Okay, and that is where you can run in pod, you can run multiple containers, and the containers, whatever you are running, that is going to run inside a pods. So basically it is a autonomy of the container.
If you go, just explain what is pod, is kind of namespace in Linux server. How it is isolate your
Ah,
resources. Same thing in Kubernetes. It is isolating your pods. Pods means it is isolation. Any number of container we can create inside that.
that means now, whatever the problem statement we have started with, that I cannot, the moment whenever I am running docker run hyphen p 8080d in Nginx, but with pods, I can run whatever I wanted to do because it runs in a complete different namespace altogether. Okay, we are also going to see that, but as the moment, let it be 20,000 overview. The moment when I go deeper and deeper, I will explain those things as well. Okay, at the moment, just these things: kubelet, container engine, and kubeproxy, and your pods. Already you have done kubelet, registers the node, speaks to the API server, instantiates your pods, and reports back to the master. Container engine basically is the Docker, starting, stopping, maintaining all those parts. Kubeproxy, networking related, manages your IP, manages your load balancer, all those sorts. And pods, basically, it is the autonomy of containers, and also pods can have multiple containers as it is running in a separate namespace. Okay, so this is going to be interesting, and I want anyone to help me with this. And this one clears all of your doubts, all yours. Who one can read and explain? Yep, go ahead. What's happening under the hood? Go ahead.
kubectl writes to the API server. Yeah, the API server, there its entry point. API server validates the request and persists it to the HTTP. Yes, it store HTTP store value, key value store. So it's stored there and it fetch the data as well in depending on the request type. HTTP notifies back the API server. Yeah, if any request to store, it stores directly. If any need to fetch data, it's no return the data to API server. Then API server invokes the scheduler. Yes, because any kind of scheduler, it you given in that YAML file what kind of things you wanted to create. So it in inbox or intimate that scheduler to have a look onto this, and scheduler decides where to run the pod and returns to that the API server. Yes, now the
Again, API server.
API return back to the API server. Then API server persists it to do the etcd. Okay, etcd validated, and if anything to store in etcd, it stores that it is the API server. It's storing which node and how many ports are creating. It is storing in etcd, and then etcd notify back to the API server. Yes, I have stored that all the information. Then in the API server invoke kubelet in corresponding nodes. API server inbox kubelet to create those resources. What kind of things you want to create. Then kubelet talks to the Docker daemon using the API over the Docker socket to create the container. Yes, here also we come to know the after kubelet inside the Docker, the API again, Docker API here, not kubelet
Yes.
API. Here's a Docker
Yes.
API. Do all the container creation inside the Docker daemon, means or in the Docker application. Then again kubelet updates the pod status to the API server. Once Docker created all the containers, the Docker API will intimate to kubelet to inform that kube API that our pods have already created. Then kubelet updates the post to the API server. Again, API server pushes the new state in the etcd.
That's it. How cool
Yes.
is that? Interesting, right? Understood? Complete.
It's the complete workflow from where it is coming, from where it is going.
Yeah.
If this is stores in your HCD mind, then yeah, it's very easy then afterwards.
Just a moment. I'll be back. Just one moment.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'll be back in 10 minutes because I have to do some test. Okay. So I'm pausing the recording, resume recording. All right. Yeah. So now you guys have, understood what's exactly happening under the hood, right? So at least, I have, to know this, I think must have taken 8 months probably, understood, okay, what exactly the flow. So that is where this thing has been come up with. I hope you guys would understood what's exactly the master components, the worker components, and why exactly we are coming up with. Cool.
Yes. I got.
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Everyone, what about Somek? Somek is completely silenced. Huh? What, Somek? You are certified, man. Huh? Oh, Somek slept, huh? I think Somek slept. Hey, Sumant.
No, actually my screen stopped, so I am unable to.
Okay. Now
Yes,
it is good.
yes, everything good. But I think you are going too much deep. Actually, in certification also they are not asking too much deep. Because I have write the certification, na. So I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
yeah. Yeah. So this is where this is the base. Until and unless you understand what's exactly happening around the under the hood, you're not going to get it. Certification is just like on top of, okay, I want to do this, do that. Just know that, okay, you are well versed with the components, but this
Concept.
is the actual stuff.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so Sumant, you got it, or it is completely confusing for you?
No, sir.
Got it?
I made it very clear.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's very yeah, I got it.
Okay. I think Anurag is also there. Okay, let me ask Anurag. Hey, Anurag, tell me, it's good, or it's completely somewhere?
I'm getting only 50% of it.
Okay, fine. What about Pratishruti? Where is he? Oh my God, he left. Fine. No problem. Okay, so I think I'm good from my side. I'll share the recording once I'm done. Okay, so tomorrow most probably I'm not going to take any classes tomorrow. So next week we are going to see actual what's you install in Kubernetes and the next of the scary parts, how exactly it happens. Okay, cool.
Actually, I am working in Kubernetes also, but this is too much deep. Really saying.
Perfect, no problem, no problem, no problem.
I have visibility to Kubernetes, but I'm not going inside. If someone asks, then I will go there. That's why I'm escaping from there.
But now with me, with the sessions and all, you are not going to escape. There is no escaping because my way of things, get into the deep, get the things, then you come out. The moment when you come out, you'll say, oh, what is this? This is what, let me, you will think of, you'll see, we'll see. There are a lot many things. There are a lot many demo sessions are there, a lot many practice sessions as well as real-time scenarios. So you do not have to worry. Cool.
Okay, sir.
All right then. Chalo, bye
Can
bye.
you share this PPT?
Yeah. I'll share.
Oh,
No problem. Chalo, bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.